to this chat today, which I've been super looking forward to. So, yes, I'm Andrea Balboni, and I'm a sex, love, and relationships coach. I've been doing this work now professionally for about 6 years. And let's say my own journey in this space started probably about 5 or 6 years before that. So I've been in focused on relationships, intimacy, sex, sexuality for about a decade now. And I came to it because I was single for 1,000 years. Most of my my teenage years and most of my adult life, I was single and stuck. And I couldn't get beyond it. And I really wanted a relationship despite how many awards I got at being really good at being single. So everyone would always say, but you're so independent, you're free spirited. And that was all wonderful. And it felt really good to feel that I could do things on my own, that I could be the person I wanted to be. And I had a very deep desire to share my life with someone. And it wasn't happening. And so for me, the gateway in and through actually happened through getting to know myself as a woman and now what I would describe as my sexuality in a way that felt really healthy and good to me. I never would have known that I was blocked, let's say, or challenged in that way until I really came across again and again the common denominator being me and feeling really stuck. And so I came to this work through the world of Tantra, actually, and sacred sexuality, as a philosophy and as a way of being with relationships and sex and sexuality in a whole new way that also felt really, for me, good. And by that I mean healthy and alive. So after moving in the world of Tantra, which I will maybe describe a bit later, articulate it because we have so many different ideas about what that is and what that means. I opened up enough to myself and the parts of me that were woman and sexy and sensual and erotic even, accepted those parts of me, learned to really live from that space in a healthy, balanced way, and then eventually met my partner. So that was about 6 years ago. We're still together. We're still working in this beautiful relationship that we're creating. And so I vowed that if I could ever make it through and meet someone and feel like I had a beautiful relationship that was full of passion and desire, that I would help other people do the same. And so that's when I shifted from a 20-year career in technology and design into coaching in sex, love, and relationships. So that's pretty much it. That's how
Wow.
it happened. Yeah.
Thank you.
Continuing journey. It's a continuing journey, but I love it. I love the work, and so I'm super happy to be here today in this Ask Me Anything space that we've created, and yeah, and also to hear from everyone who's come, and even the people who are watching in maybe at a later time. If you have any questions that come through that don't come out in this, feel free to message me or to be in touch. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has at any time, now or in the future.
Andrea, if I can just interrupt, it's a fairly intimate group. And if we find we want to have a really deep, intimate discussion that we don't want to put on YouTube, we can at any point shut the recording down and not make it public. So, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. That's also amazing. And yeah, so I guess my first question to everyone here is what brought you here? What are you curious about? What would you love to learn? What would you love to walk away with? Um, because the subject is, Julia kind of began to nod to it, it is very intimate and can feel very private. You may not feel totally comfortable with fielding questions to the group. So you can always DM me privately. So if you just go over to the chat and select my name, everyone probably knows how to do this by now, but I'll say it just in case, then you can ask any questions and pop them in the chat. And then no one will see who's sent the question, but it's usually a question that you wished someone would ask. So I'll share the question with the group and then answer it, if that sounds good for everyone. So yeah, so Julie, I'm not sure if because we are a small group, if we want to do breakout rooms, or maybe people can share, or if we want to just share in this space, what feels better to you?
Up to you.
Up to me. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. I am going to do this then. I am going to, again, just ask if anyone wants to share maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
We've got a response. Let's go for breakout rooms.
Yay. Okay, perfect. Yeah, good. Let's see. Do you want to create them, Julia, or should I?
Yeah. I don't know if you can.
Let's see.
Okay.
I did. I was able to a minute ago. Oh, yeah, I can.
Go ahead then, because then you can organize people.
Okay. So let's see if I do assign automatically. Create 1, 2, 3, 4. Create.
You can put me I'll go off in a group too.
Okay. We'll create 3 breakout rooms. I think
yeah.
Okay. Except there's one person. Let's see. Pete, if you want to stay in this room with me, if that's okay, then I'll send everyone else away. Yeah?
Sure.
Oh, actually, and the other thing I did want to share before we go into the breakout rooms is if at any time you want to opt out of any of the questions, any of the breakout rooms, any of the commenting, anything, you absolutely 100% can. So it's radical self-care. Some of this stuff can get really sensitive for some people depending on the things you've experienced in life. So just know you have complete agency over any level of involvement or any kind of stepping back that you want to do. You can shut your screens off at any time. You can mute yourself and you can leave the conversation at any time if you need to. So just extra safety there. No offense will be taken by me for sure. Okay, I'm going to open the rooms. All right.
Andrea, I'm being invited to room 3. Should I go there or stay in the main room?
You can't ignore it, but let's see if everyone else pops out. Ignore it and stay with me. Oh, Julia's still here. Where is Julia gonna go? How come Julia didn't get it? Oh, co-host.
Julia, you should be able to join a room of your choice if you go to breakout rooms.
Okay. What it looks like,
are Alistair and Joe still here?
Joe's still here. Alistair, they're in room 2. Or is Alistair frozen? He kind of does look a bit frozen there.
Nope, Joe's gone.
It was snowing in Joburg yesterday, isn't that? Where's Alistair based?
He's Cape Town somewhere. I don't know where he moved. He used to be Muizenberg.
Frozen on this end. Let's see.
I don't know what Alistair's up to. He's kind of frozen. I think there's Joe.
Hi, hi, Julia. I went to room 1, but there was nobody else there.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you not room 2?
Oh,
I'll come and
I went to the room it told me to join. Sorry, I can't remember what number it was.
That's fine. I'll come there now. Alistair seems to be jammed. He was meant to join us. I'll see you in room 2.
Okay.
Let me see, Joe, if I can re-get you in.
Okay, I can see where I must go.
Okay, great. Okay, let's see. Broadcast message. Okay, now I think Julia's gone. Yeah.
Okay, now
we did.
Alistair's gone.
Hurrah! Alistair's gone too. Hurrah! No, we love Alistair. We're not wishing him gone forever. Okay, so how long should we share for? Maybe 6 minutes? Take 6 minutes to share. I'll just broadcast that to the room. There we go. Okay. So
There we are.
Here we are. Yay. Nice to meet you. I don't think I've met you
Likewise.
before.
I don't recall it. So if we have, that it was maybe in one of these sessions, just a passing moment. But no, great to meet you.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I joined without really knowing what the topic was.
Oh,
So
okay. Surprise.
it was one of those things that I had it blocked out, but I didn't have the title, and I thought, kind of curious, let's go in and have a look. And it was only when I got in and I saw this, and well, let me go and read this first. So I'm delighted I came because it's an area that I haven't really explored as a coach. Because just a bit of backstory, my wife is a psychologist, so the more sort of we have a practice of cross referral, and anything which is more of a psychological area, couple therapy, etc., etc. I tend to point my clients in her direction.
Okay. Interesting.
So, but it's great to be here, and I'm here to learn and absorb and get different perspectives. So that's a little bit of my sort of backstory as to how come I'm here.
Amazing. Okay. I'm just going to say hi to Victoria, and then I just have a question for you about your practice.
Sure.
Hi, Victoria. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you as well.
We started the session, just so you know, we just started the session saying hi, introed myself really quickly. I'm the person who's hosting today,
Yes.
Julia. So everyone's gone into breakout rooms to kind of just share what brought them here today.
Great.
And yeah, just if there's any questions they came with or what they'd love to walk away with.
Okay.
So Pete just shared he's surprised by the topic because he hadn't actually looked at what the topic was. And yeah, if you don't know, it's a sex and
Yes.
ask me anything. So
Yes.
kind of theme. So yeah, so we were just talking about what brought Pete here, and he was saying his telling me. But Pete, what is if your wife is more psychology, what's your practice focused on?
I'm an executive coach, so came through the executive career, then started coaching part-time 12 years or so, full-time for about 8.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a short story. Teams, individuals, and groups. So I coach all 3.
Amazing. Okay, teams, individuals. Great.
Yeah, I also am an executive coach. I worked very closely with the team at Aephoria. I've been, similar to Pete, was a part-time coach for not as many years as Pete, for about 5 years, and just went out on my own or I should say, left the day job, the corporate job, about 6 months ago, and am now doing it full time. And so what brings me here is really all of the programming at Euphoria. This topic is very interesting. As far as coaching goes, haven't really tapped into this at all. So really eager to hear from you. When I noticed you were the featured guest today, I had a chance to go to your website and better understand some of the things you do. So really excited to learn more and be a part of the group.
Okay, excellent. All right, feel free to ask me anything.
Right.
So yeah, I'm really open to questions, and it also helps me to answer to whatever you guys want to learn.
Great.
So
and Andrea, where is it? Andrea or Andrea?
Andrea's okay.
Andrea. And where are you based?
So I am in London now, but I'm originally from Massachusetts. So
Okay.
in the US.
Great.
Yeah.
And Pete, where are you?
I'm in South Africa, a little village called Kenton-on-Sea, which is halfway between Durban and Cape Town, roughly on the coast.
Cool.
Wow. Sounds beautiful.
Where are you, Victoria?
I'm in San Francisco.
Okay. Oh, nice. Oh,
yeah. And by the way, apologies for being late. I had some responsibilities I had to handle first thing this morning before getting online. So sorry to be late to the session.
We're glad you're here. Let me tell everyone just to take 2 more minutes. Sorry, I'm doing the breakout room thing whilst we're...
Yeah, please go for it.
Yeah.
No, I fully understood.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so you guys are both executive coaches, which is good. So I'll talk about this. I don't want to repeat stuff, but we'll do some work with erotic transference and erotic countertransference. And when that happens, how to be with it, what to do, when it's coming from the client, when it may also come from you, how to manage it. because I find that we talk a lot about transference, or people tend to talk about it in therapy, but they don't necessarily specifically speak about when it's erotic transference and what to do, or when that energy is there in the room, which is a bit different. So yeah, so I'm excited for that. And then Julia kind of asked, expand it out where they can ask anything. So you really can ask anything. So if there's a friend dealing with an issue or a relationship thing, then feel free to also take the chance to field it.
Fun.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I'd even love a definition of erotic transference. Just layman's terms, I have my own idea of what it is, but even just like to use the reference, explain it to me like I'm 5. I mean, I'm really curious about all that. So
yeah.
should be good.
Yeah, and then it's up for debate as well. We'll talk about, well, I always like to say, and how does this feel? Does this feel like an accurate definition? Does it want adding to, taking away from, shifting or changing? How might we shape what it is or becomes? Yeah. I always love to explore those spaces too and hear.
Yeah. So how long have you been, do you mind if I ask really quick? How long have you been in practice on this topic?
So do you mean transference, erotic transference, or in sex, love, and relationships?
Maybe sex, love, and relationships.
Yeah. So that's the part you missed. So I'll be really quick. Poor Pete.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You have to hear it again. Rewind. So it's been, I would say professionally, I've been working professionally for 6 years after getting a few certifications. So I have a few certifications in it. But before that, I was on a journey of my own for about 5 years of understanding what was keeping me from having what I wanted in relationships, especially, and then intimacy as well. It became more about that as time went by. So yeah, I came through the world of Tantra, so a bit of an alternative route and then also when I did my certifications, it was on modern psychology, neuroscience, trauma informed therapeutic methodologies as well. So it's quite a beautiful integrated practice because I'll explain it a little bit as we move forward.
Sure.
But yeah, that's basically it.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah, it does. Really, I always admire people who are, I think I learned when I went through coach training that, in order to be an extraordinary coach, you really have to go through your own journey.
Yeah.
And deal with your own shit and really take a good long look in the mirror, so to speak, around, how we show up and all of our stuff. And, sometimes I think we want to rush through that journey to get to be that coach that we've wanted to be or whatever. And I think that often it can be a longer journey than expected. I know for me, it was a longer journey and I had some setbacks, personal setbacks, mainly a major concussion. And it really stopped me in the middle of my journey. And I then realized later on that is what I really needed in order to hold the space for other people was, being locked in my room a dark room, I should say, for 8 to 9 months, doing my, kind of pulling myself out from a deep hole in which I was living in. Talk about having a whole new level of resource to support others. So your story resonated with me around your own personal journey as well. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing as well.
Hi, Victoria.
Hello, we're back. Aww.
Good.
How was it for everyone?
Hello.
What came through? Does anyone want to pop into the chat a nugget or a new thought or anything that feels worthy of sharing in the space? Worthy, I don't know about worthy, but that you'd love to share in the space. I think what came through in our group was that, or unmute yourselves as well. You don't have to type it in the chat. You can just unmute yourself and shout it out. We have a small enough group and it's, feel free to shout it out. What I loved was that I was sitting with Pete and Victoria and they're both executive coaches and also are both super curious about, Pete, that's surprised by the topic, but really welcome in this space, which is great and open. And then Victoria, who's also sharing, I think Victoria for me as well, it's that personal journey that brought us to where we are now. and acknowledging that we move through so much in order to, it allows us to kind of share and hold space for the people that we work with in a very beautiful and powerful way. So I love that. Yeah, excited to share more too. Okay. And then Julia shares in the chat, we were wondering about sex and coaching. So do you mean sex coaching, or do you mean, can you just articulate or just?
Yeah. Well, we're interested in all of the angles on sex, actually. Okay. So sex, how it manifests in coaching, sexual transference, what boundaries, when is it part of our remit as coaches, when it's not, languages to deal with things we were saying, and jump in, Joe, because I'm dominating. What happens when people want to share less usual practices? What about affairs? What about, so some of the stuff we spoke about when clients don't want to have sex with their partner, but want to stay with them. You know, all these kinds of things come up in our daily bread.
Yeah, so much.
And then we just also wanted like some basic stuff, like how much sex is people having? What kind of sex are people having? How does life stage influence it? What does it look like? Is sex changing? Yeah, all the sort of normative stuff.
Okay, shall we go off on a week somewhere? Yeah, it's such a rich and beautiful topic, and I love this. I love opening the cover and talking about any of it. And it's needed. It's the powerful, beautiful force in the world, and it's one of the most shadowed, repressed, suppressed, shamed, guilted, and shoved in a corner aspects of being human. That's slowly coming into the light, but very slowly. So this is one, I think we're doing a great service to the world of asking all those questions in this space, so that we can be with it in our own way, in our capacity as a coach, in our practices, in our personal lives, in a way that feels for us healthy, balanced, nuanced, because it is quite nuanced, and give us the power and feel empowered to be with what can be so tender and so delicate and so edgy and so fiery. It's everything. So I get really passionate about the topic. So all of that, I've got a lot of that in what I prepared today, and then I would love for this to really be an opportunity for us to have a lot of discussion. So yeah, I would say, Julia, rein me in if I start going off on a monologue in a certain direction and we want to ask questions to the group.
No, we want to hear from you.
But maybe let's start at the beginning. I created a deck, which may or may not help. I don't want it to be a distraction, but I'll share my screen. I'll share the deck, and then we'll talk around it. I feel like that would be good. All right, let us start. Amazing. We got what you're curious about. I'm just going to share my screen. Here. Okay. Can everyone see this? Okay. Yeah. So the first point here is we all have an erotic history. So the question becomes, can we truly separate or eradicate the erotic from our work and or our daily lives? Why would we, is my question that just came forward. But when does it become a problem if we cannot? When is it a benefit? When is it kind of like a problem? So what I would just love to hear is, does anyone have an opinion on whether we can truly separate the erotic from our work or our lives? Does anyone really firmly believe I can box that up and put it on a shelf and it stays over there and it's perfectly fine until I take it out and unwrap it? Or does it kind of creep in or pop up? Everyone's going, no. It's energy. Yeah? It's life force. It's creative life force energy. Erotic energy is very simply creative life force energy. It creates lives. It wants to move. It creates artwork. It creates your business. It's creative energy. It wants to move. It wants to be expressed. You can learn to channel that energy, and we'll talk a little bit about that. It's probably the most esoteric part of what I'll speak to today. You learn to channel that energy in a way where you can then apply it to any space or place in your life, even if it shows up in relation to another person that you're attracted to, or as a result of showing up in relation to a person that you're attracted to that may or may not be appropriate. It's very simply energy that you, when you become conscious and aware of how to be with it, can be leveraged, can be moved in ways that can support you that may not seem possible because you've only thought of it as an energy that moves in one direction in one way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It'll make sense to some people. Some people will be like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Okay. I guess it depends. Someone's saying, I guess it depends on whether you work in a big organization with a punitive. Right. So this is where that energy does not necessarily get expressed in sexually overt ways. So it does not necessarily get expressed as flirtation, as hitting on someone, as asking someone out on a date, as using and it can be energy that can be shifted from your sex. This is very esoteric. I'm going right there at the beginning. From your sex center into your heart or into your mind to be used to create something totally different. Yeah, it's a very radical idea, okay? And it oftentimes needs to be experienced rather than explained. So I'm going to kind of leave it in the field for now. I'm going to leave it in the field for now as a thing and move on because we might get a little stuck in it. Tantra as a personal tool as well. I see that as also, okay, you reflected on using Tantra as a personal tool. Love it. Would love to hear what that reflection was about. Okay, let's move on though. Okay, what is the erotic and how is it different from sex? We're going a little bit more deeply before we pull out of this space. Does anyone have an inkling about what the erotic is and how it is different from sex? Or a guess, or a thought, or an unformed, messy, sloppy idea. I love those. Emerging from this space that we're in. I'm going to go back. Yeah, go ahead, Julia.
I'm just wondering, I don't know if it's the same as Eros.
Mm-hmm.
And I quite like, I was listening to, what's her name? Esther Perel and her husband talk about trauma victims and how they bring in sort of Eros as this life force, the spirit of creativity and spirituality, as a way to get people back from trauma, and not like a sexual way, but like a life force way. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're talking about, or is that a bit different?
Yeah, that sounds like Eros to me. It sounds like one of the qualities of Eros and the erotic. So there is some overlap with sexual desire and Eros. I love Esther Perel. I actually have her quoted here in the next slide. Yeah, eroticism isn't sex. It's sexuality transformed by the human imagination. Okay? It's the thoughts, dreams, anticipation, unruly impulses, and even painful memories that we as humans carry from our past into our present. And this will have everything to do with transference and how to manage it. Yeah, and counter transference and how to manage it. Eroticism, if you will, is the meaning we make. Sometimes, yeah, it's nuanced. Sometimes it's the meaning we make out of the feeling of desire that we have for another person or attraction that we have for another person. Other times it's the fantasy or the things that excite us about that space in between another person, ourselves and another person as well. And a lot of it will come from our experiences of early childhood attachment, sometimes later in life experiences of intimacy and sex and pleasure. So another very radical, this is extremely radical, learning that we have, it's scientifically proven, in vitro, babies, when they're in the mother's belly, self-pleasure. It's proven by science, actually, that we're already built for pleasure in a very erotic way, if you will, or a very in that case, I wouldn't say it's necessarily erotic in the way that we're speaking about it now, but we're built, the point being that we're built for pleasure, and that it's with us from a very, very early age. And that as we move through the different ages and stages of our lives, how we experience that pleasure gets imprinted by society and culture, family, religion, spirituality, belief systems, and everything else that we experience. So those imprints can absolutely affect the erotic and how we experience that pleasure and how we express that pleasure. But we are basically beings made from this creative life force energy, from pleasure, and we experience it from really, really earlier on than any of us ever thought, all the way through until the day when we move off the earth. Does anyone want to share anything that's coming up for them? Because those are kind of quite big ideas to sit with. You can also completely disagree. You can fact check things. You can, question. Absolutely.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm curious with this latest in vitro statistic or whatever it might be. I'm curious if pleasure is kind of what's rooted in that. I'm not saying it right. Something along the lines of self-pleasure and pleasure, if that's what that person is oriented around or oriented towards from a very, very early age, or other eggs or babies that were created naturally, what might their orientation be?
And if there's a difference.
Yes.
Yeah. And is pleasure, in this case, self-soothing somehow? These are questions I would dive into. I haven't. I'll be honest with you, I haven't. Is there some dissonance or something happening where that little tiny life force is needing to self-soothe or needing to feel some sort of soothing because of some dissonance that's happening in the environment that the mother's in, or who knows if I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe Victoria can have a look and come back to you and see what comes through, because it's a curious one. And so the meaning making becomes a bit more important as we enter into practice with a client, and where some of these some desire or pleasure or attraction, sensual, sexual, or erotic shows up. So that's when we begin to say, okay, what meaning is the client making? What meaning am I making? What's coming up for them? How and why? Am I within scope? Am I equipped to sit with some of this? Or when is it out of scope? The questions that Julia began to articulate at the beginning. So, So erotic transference and erotic countertransference, as opposed to regular old transference, what's the difference? Does anyone want to harbor a guess? probably pretty simple. Let's see. So we'll just do a really quick, very simplified, very pared down definition of transference. When a person redirects some of their feelings or desires for another person to the, well, in this case, to the coach or therapist. Countertransference, when the coach or therapist redirects their own feelings or desires onto their client, possibly as a reaction to their client's transference, but not necessarily. So erotic transference, and this I've taken from the National Library of Medicine, which I have, if anyone wants to kind of like dig into these, into my references, you certainly can. So erotic transference, when it can be positive still in the coaching or therapeutic relationship, is when the client is able to see what's going on and understand what's going on, and it can use this information as part of their process of learning, self-reflection, self-development, understanding, and begin to understand, okay, this is what's happening. I understand why, and I'm able to continue to move through therapy or coaching with you, and it feels good. It feels grounded. It's something that we're sitting with. It's another thing that's coming up that we're sitting with. Eroticized transference instead is when there is there's so much energy there. There's so much energy between client and therapist, either for the client, for the therapist, for both, for either one, that the focus shifts from being able to do the work on understanding what's happening and stay grounded in what's happening. The objective viewpoint is still maintained. And when you get almost knocked out and it becomes a patterning, and I've seen and heard of this quite a bit, where a client will see a therapist forever because they've fallen in love with a therapist. And they hope that something is going to happen. And maybe even sometimes have shared that they felt that the coach or the therapist has kept them going or have strung them along, because there's also either there's some codependency there. There's some, whether it's a business reason the coach keeps the client on, or there's interest that's not being fully acknowledged, that some people do experience this thing. And that's when it's eroticized, when it becomes something that wants to be managed in a different way, that needs to be managed outside of the client-coach relationship, or the client-coach/therapist relationship. Anytime I say therapist, you can slash it with coach. Anytime I say coach, you can slash it with therapist in this context. Does that make sense?
Are you going to talk a little bit more about how you deal with that? Because I mean,
it's a big one, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking like sexual attraction seems a little bit easier, but when it gets yeah. You're going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm interrupting.
Yeah. So are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready to be with this? To be with this? To be with attraction? To be with whatever's emerging for your client, especially if it's overtly sexual or sexualized. If the client's really coming on to you very strongly, how do you be with that? Or they're sharing erotic fantasies, or they're sharing in great detail. Do you feel ready, that you have capacity to sit with it, that you have the skills and tools that you need to be able to work with it? Yeah? And how confident are you of ethically managing erotic countertransference? So the reason why I wanted to really dive into this today with you guys is because in my experience of working with sex and intimacy with people over time, even if it shows up, the presenting problem, or it shows up as something that may feel light, oftentimes, so often, there's very deep trauma underneath it. There's a very, we can also say, okay, most of us have trauma, most of us have experienced, we know this now in the world, trauma, capital T, developmental trauma, let me go on to the next slide, it'll just help. Okay. All right. So yeah, basically what the point of this is do you feel equipped? Do you feel ready? Do you feel able to hold that space for your client? Should these things come up? Yeah. Okay, let's see. That's okay for Joe. Okay, so I'm going to share, I'm just skipping a little bit more to this part of it, because whether or not you'll be able to sit with things that come up with your client, or whether you want to refer them on, like Pete might refer this person on to his partner who's a psychologist, because he's like, okay, this is out of scope for me, or maybe Pete, it won't be, I don't know. But if things do emerge in a practice, I do the same. If I feel like someone has something that I'm not necessarily equipped, it's a scope of work question, yeah? Is it within your scope of work, within your remit, within the training that you have, within the capacity that you have to hold someone at certain levels, to hold a client in this space? So there's the one thing of holding your client for what's showing up. There's another thing for what's happening for you as you're holding the client. If you have a lot of your own unresolved stuff around sex and sexuality, around intimacy, around relationships, you may find it very triggering and extremely difficult to hold that neutral space for your client. Yeah, so I'm kind of skipping ahead of myself a bit. Before I kind of go there, I just wanted to share why this might come up for a client. Some of this you may already know because it comes up in practice in other ways. For kids who they've been sexualized when they were little or experienced abuse in childhood, then they may feel that they have to behave in a sexual way with people that they experience as having power over them. And in the coach-client relationship, as the coach, there can be a sense that the coach has the power and wields the power. And in a way we do, because we're holding a container, we're holding a space. And we're directing how that space, we're directing, sometimes managing, definitely, the shape of that space at any given time. So we are in a power position, yeah? And so it's a reactive, and it will be, for the client, it'll feel totally normal because that's how they're wired. Yeah. For you receiving it and seeing it happen, it will be obviously something that wants to be worked through, because it's not necessarily a healthy way of being. Yeah. Or someone whom they want to please. So if they're also trying to please you as the coach, right? I want to make sure that I'm doing all the stuff I'm supposed to be doing. I want to be getting better. Then also this kind of behavior may come up. Does that make sense? The childhood experience one? Yeah.
I've seen this. Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
Sorry.
Or Victoria, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I have a question. This is both for Andrea as well as for Julia. When we're talking about the childlike expression or whatever that might be, it makes me think of some of the training with the Enneagram around the type 2. I think it's the self-preservation type 2, where there's a childlike way of showing up, maybe like kind of like I don't know if I want to say baby talk, but like a voice that's like cutesy and sort of desirable and childlike. Julia, is there anything that comes in for you around this? And do you think they're related at all? Or is this, does that land for you at all?
Uh-oh, I think she's frozen. Uh-oh. I think she's frozen.
I can pause. We can come back to
it. Can you hear me?
You're really slow.
Is that rural area? Can you guys hear me? No?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. It comes and goes. Okay, great. I think it's a good question. I think that personality interferes in expression of sexuality. So maybe 2s would do it in that way, or 8s might do it in a more kind of aggressively sexual way, etc., etc. And I actually have seen an Enneagram 2 female client do a whole sexual thing with me. And she fitted perfectly into this group of people who had childhood experiences that invited them to behave like that with adults, even in a coaching situation. So yes, I suppose personality interferes in the manifestation, in how you express your sexuality, what the story is. I don't know. There is a book on Enneagram and sex that looks at this as well. Yeah.
I have a question, Victor, a clarifying question. So because I'm less familiar with the Enneagram, but I'm very familiar with the childlike voice that will come through with clients, because of the way that I work with internal family systems. So if I'm working with a person, and I'm speaking to a part of them that comes from early childhood experience, their voice will change. And as I dialogue with that part of them, I shift my tone as well to meet that little girl or that little boy or that little person inside of them. It makes it easier for that little person inside of them to then give us the information on what it needs and how it wants to be taken care of, so that that healing can happen and the client can shift into their adult self. Yeah.
Very interesting.
So interesting. It's so, when their voice shifts, it's that inner child piece that's starting. It's so tender. The tears come, like it's so, so tender. And the understanding that can come from that is very valuable. So yeah, I think we're saying the same thing in different ways. It sounds like it's an adaptation. Yeah. So the adaptation of that child, in order to get their needs met, was to behave in this certain way. That adaptation, maladaptive then, as Terry Real says. Yeah, I mean maladaptive, adaptive now, maladaptive. You know what I mean? Adaptive then, maladaptive now. So getting that client to shift into a new behavior would be the work to do. So that's the question that you ask yourself when this stuff comes up. Is this within scope? Do I have the tools? Do I have the skills? Can I hold the space in order for us to work through this? Because it's a beautiful opportunity for working through what will likely be a very deep wound, yeah, or a deep. Sometimes the word wound feels like it's reinforcing something, but moving through something that wants to be moved through, to be smoothed over and healed. Yeah. And then another reason, these are just a couple of reasons. There are other reasons why the energy could come through this way. Another reason is that by definition, the work that we do is very intimate. And so there can be confusion between the intimacy that we are experiencing, or the client experiences with us, and the desire for the expression of that intimacy to move into something physical or erotic, because they're feeling the closeness. And the next natural expression for them may feel that they could confuse that intimacy with love, or romantic love, or erotic love. And maybe it's not even confusion. This is contentious. Yeah, I like to throw in the contentious thing. Maybe it's not confusing. Maybe that's what it is, but it's not appropriate for the context. Because what we're doing is helping someone to heal. We're not looking to. So it's sort of, maybe it's more about acknowledging that there may be intimacy, there may be the erotic that's happening, right? Coming back to that initial question of, can we really box it up and put it on a shelf? Truthfully, like raw truth here, raw truth, right? Can we really box it up? Is it really not intimacy? Is it really not erotic energy? Maybe it is. And so how we manage that needs to be we need to be very careful about that. in order not to damage ourselves or the client or the relationship, which is meant to be a healing space. Yeah. I'm happy to hear any thoughts or, yeah.
I'd love to hear some sentences about how to deal with it. I've jumped in and Rick was very kind and put his hand up, but to the wrong computer.
Okay. So
words. How do you deal? Give us the words.
It's the client's privilege to act out their feelings. For the therapist, it is the therapist's responsibility to do the opposite. Yes. Okay. Thank you. What to do about it? Okay. Awareness and acceptance. Yay! Hurrah!
Sorry, Andrea.
Yes.
Just one more question there. I also have experience in the tantra world. I've been quite involved there for a time, not anymore really. But and the tantra teachers, I mean, there's a whole world of very, very different people doing very different things. But in my experience, there would definitely be some of them who would say that the way to deal with that is to roll with it. And exactly that thing of you cannot package up that eroticism, you know, and hold it to the side and trying to work around with it. The way to deal with it is to engage with it. So I'm interested about your thoughts there.
Yes. So that's one option. That's one option. Let's see. I'm going to get there, Rikus. Did I say your name properly? Rikus? Yeah. I'm going to get there.
Rikus.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
I'm going to get there. Yeah, we'll do the top line stuff and then we'll go a little bit deeper. So just acceptance and awareness, you all know this because you do this in the work that you do already. Just listening without judgment is healing. So listening to this expression, perhaps for the first time, even in expressing desire, around the erotic and the client's experience of it can be incredibly healing when it's not met with criticism, judgment, which is what they experienced likely initially with shame and guilt. So just listening. I'll go quickly. Make the unconscious conscious. We talked about this quite a bit, helping the client understand what's going on, why it's happening, tying it back to childhood if it emerges from there or something else. So basically working with it. We talked about that enough. Helping them to understand what they're feeling and why. Also, we spoke with it. I talked about scope of practice. With sex and sexuality, again, I cannot say it enough times. Usually it stems from abuse or trauma. That could be an event, acute trauma. It could be developmental, so happening over time. You may already know this about trauma, or complex trauma, a mix of both. It can show up in a lot of different ways. Don't need to. Okay, so those are maybe the things that kind of were obvious. I'm not necessarily leaving language right now, Julia, but I will. I don't have a slide on it, so we can just talk to it. But I just wanted to kind of cover the boundaries and behavior change thing, and then we'll go into Rikus. We'll go into other ways to be with it. That comes up more in the counter-transference part of this, but we're going to get there. So maintaining the structure of the relationship helps create that safety. So by maintaining the structure of the relationship that you have, including the boundaries that you've set up, is healing for a client as well. So if all of a sudden they begin to express this energy and you get weird and they get weird and everything turns a bit weird, and all of a sudden if they had access to you outside of session, or if you were a little bit tactile with them normally, all of a sudden all of this normally, if that was what you had established as a way of communicating with your client, all of that shifts, then they may take that in the wrong way. If it feels appropriate that the boundary shifts, if it feels appropriate that that boundary does shift, state it clearly and state your reasons why, so that they know what's happening. So there's a difference between easier said than done. I've absolutely not been perfect. All of this is easier to kind of teach and profess, as you likely know, than to actually do. is, okay, I'm shifting this way. I think it will be better and more healthy for us if we shift the containers of the coaching container in this way, or the boundaries in that way, because da 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 da. How do you feel about that? What do you think about that? So if you are going to shift the boundary, shift the way that you're interacting with the client in some way, articulating why, and listening to them and hearing how they're responding to that, maintains the integrity of the relationship, trust, and safety. Yeah? Pretty clear. Okay, countertransference. Let's see. Okay, so if instead you feel like you're on a back foot, you don't really know what to do, a coach or a therapist may become inappropriately involved with the client, so may actually enter into an affair with the client, which we all know obviously is not okay. Tantra world's a little bit different. Aloof to a client in an effort to pull back to maintain emotional distance. Both of these can cause harm, yeah, if done unconsciously or not above the line, not spoken to, not experienced. If you decide that you want to enter into a relationship with this person, these are things that you know already. The client-coach relationship ends, yeah, clearly, and the relationship begins. The client gets referred on if they need to work out stuff some more. I would say also green field, some space in between when the therapy and coaching happens and when that relationship actually begins, if possible. Yeah, but having that clear distinction, okay, now this professional container is closed. I'm going to enter into a relationship with this person. It's clearly articulated. Yeah, not testing it out to see if it's going to work. And that, yeah, you got to cut your losses. Or, as I said, shifting that boundary, pulling back without explaining what's going on or happening in an effort to bring some space back in where it feels like maybe things have gotten too much like this. It wants to be managed. Any questions on this? Kind of saying the same thing in a few different ways, and it's some stuff that you probably already likely know, or a lot of stuff you likely already know. So if there's any questions around it, again, welcome any challenge, any disagreement, any other viewpoints or opinions, please. Love having those.
Andrea.
Yeah.
Hi. Thanks for that. Just to be clear, did you say if you do decide to get involved with a client, then the coaching relationship has to end?
I would say, yeah. Well, there are ethics and laws around it. So there are ethics and laws around it. It ends. Julia's nodding. It ends. Okay. It needs to be stated. Julia, I'm not sure because I've never looked into it. If there's actually that, I called it greenfield. If there's that space that needs to happen between when the coaching or therapy ends and when the relationship begins, I'm not sure if there are laws or anything written in stone on that. Even I just thought,
In South Africa, you can be reported for having a relationship with your client if you are a therapist, and you can be removed from your registration with Health Professions Council. And I think that's the same in the UK. Coaches haven't kind of got their ducks together around this, but it is unethical to continue having a relationship. It's also very confusing. It ruins the relationship.
I also, Alistair, I don't coach friends, or I also don't coach family members. And when I was doing all of my certifications, it became very clear to me if it's a distant friendship from 1,000 years ago, you barely know the person, okay, then maybe. But if it's friends and family, there's too much messiness in order to hold a really clear container for someone. And you want that container to be clear. Yeah. And so if you're romantically involved with someone or sexually involved with someone, those waters can get muddied really easily. This is to Lucas's point, this is a challenge in the that I've seen over and over again. The blurring, a messiness, like it can get really messy, really very unclear, really quickly, and someone gets hurt. And or damage is done when it does not need to happen. I'm not saying always in the world of Tantra it's like this, because I've been in that space enough to see teachers and people who work in that space. But to learn from some of those very blurry, very messy, like, ooh, it's so muddy. It's so muddy. And people get hurt. And the best work for the client as the coach, as a healer, yeah? If you consider yourself a healer, you may or may not, but really you're a space of healthcare. You're in a space of helping someone to move through stuff, yeah? It's not your privilege, really. It's not what you signed up for, I'll even say. This is some of my own ethical beliefs around it. To blur that space so that you're messing it up for the person that you're here to serve, if you're coming from a place of service. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, Julia will be much more familiar with the law and than I am, for sure. But I do know that there are laws, against it for sure. And then think about it, from here and from here and from everywhere. As someone who's being of service, and of course we're fed by the work too. There's absolutely a two-way thing. Where are you in best service, actually to yourself as much as to the other person, either in relationship or in that coaching, whether it's a coaching relationship or as a lover, as a partner. I hope I don't kill your name. Undere? Say it in Italian, and that makes me always feel better.
Thank you. Andrea, it then brings me back to the question that you asked earlier. I think earlier you asked, can you truly separate your work from your sexuality? Or I think that was the question, right? And I said, well, it depends on your sexual harassment policies. But my point is then, there's no ambiguity around how damaging and how unethical it is to have a relationship with someone you are supposed to heal. But then if we accept that there might be that energy, and we might accept that there is the attraction, then what is a different way of channeling that energy and actually not acting on it?
Yeah. How exciting that you asked this question. It's Rikus' question, actually. It's the same question, really. Okay, I'm just going to skip ahead. So, alchemizing the energy, the last one on the list, is the answer. And I'll describe what that is in a minute. Other ways to recognize and respond when counter-transference happens, or transference: supervision, so getting support from colleagues. Yeah, refer onward. So if you really feel like I'm out of scope for the client, or I am overwhelmed by what I am feeling, I no longer feel like I'm in integrity in holding the container. So it's not pushing the feelings aside or blocking them. It's acknowledging, okay, it's overwhelming. I'm not. Refer onward. Yeah, refer the client onward, letting the client know why and what's happening. Another way is to work with a coach or therapist on issues with things that are coming up for you, trauma responses that are coming up for you, challenges that are coming up for you, unresolved questions that emerge for you that you don't have quite the answers for, that you want clarity on, integration work, maybe inner child pieces for you as well, having to do with relationships and intimacy. And then alchemizing the energy, which is something that comes from wisdom traditions. Yeah, so it's wisdom traditions. It's energy work. Let's see, energy alchemy. Okay, so this is why I think it's important that we're having this precise dialogue here today, because this energy is powerful, diffuse, pervasive, and beautiful, yeah, and difficult to navigate when it's in light and used and harnessed to create, to give us, to do a lot, to feed us, to have, give aliveness to things, to give vivacity to life, to bring passion to our work, to things, yeah? And when it moves into shadow, manipulation, power struggle, like the thing of a child, that childish behavior of, I've got to behave in this way to get something, or to get my needs met. When it starts moving into the murkiness, when is it sexual harassment? When is it just energy that's come up, that's being expressed? When is that expression healthy in that it's causing neither harm towards you nor towards the others? That's always, for me, a very good barometer for healthy. Yeah, when is it not harming you, not harming the others? Beneficial to you, benefiting the others? Ethical questions that are very hard to define sometimes, yeah? So what is energy alchemy? What is energy alchemy? Oh, magic, poof. Okay, so, the chakra system, the Enneagram, yay! Whoops, I went ahead. Okay, so energy alchemy is taking this raw sexual energy that starts in our sex center, lower chakra. Is everyone familiar with the chakra system? Yeah, sorta. Kind of, sorta. I'm getting some kind of sortas. Okay, so let me just take a drink of this. And ask any questions. How's everyone doing? Okay? Yeah? Lots of stuff to sit with. Okay, so really basic, for those that are a little less familiar with the chakra system. Okay, it is a way, a lens, if you will, of understanding the different energetics or ways of being human. Yeah, I made that really my own simple definition. So how it works in the Taoist system is it's more simplified than this system, which comes from, some argue it's a westernized adaptation of what came from ancient India. Other people say it's from India. Let's just forget all that stuff and for now talk about what's sitting here. So for the Taoists, there are 3 energy centers, 3 power centers in our energetic body, which correlate to our physical body. The sex center, which is in the lower part of our body. The sex center is one raw place of raw desire, raw sexual energy, raw power. The heart center, which is our emotional world, that's another power center. And then our inner vision, our third eye. And when you become a master of energy alchemy, you can take the raw sexual energy, transform it and transmute it by moving it up your body into your heart center, experiencing that energy as heart energy, yeah, emotions, emotional. If you become a real master, moving that energy through your system into your third power center that helps to connect with greater consciousness or inner vision. And when you become a master of energy, you can take that raw turn on, that fuel, that raw desire, and move it to your heart center to open up to more emotional range, to have bigger heart for people. You can move it into your inner vision or connect with all that is to increase your awareness and open your field to higher levels of consciousness. You're actually taking that raw sexual energy and using it within you, for moving it within you for other purposes. It can be expressed to create life at its raw, let's say, at its place of origin in your sex center, down in that space. It's also in that tradition believed it can be used to manifest things in the material world, new career moves, new job, new other stuff that wants to be created. You can move it into your heart, experience it here, or move it into your head, experience it here. Yeah, this is a very, I don't want to use the word advanced, because some people use it and then manipulate it and don't use it to necessarily in a positive thingy, but it is one way to take that raw energy, shift it through your own body, and have it express in a different way, or have it be a battery pack for a different form of expression. That is the most esoteric that I will get on how to deal with that energy without having it pressed, squished, squashed, or come out in ways that are inappropriate. I have done it myself. It is something that I work with. It is incredibly beautiful, incredibly powerful, and very, very pleasurable, because it's orgasmic energy. It is pleasure-filled energy. It is how you can shift into altered states of consciousness, but also experience things, men as well, full body orgasm, become multi-orgasmic, men too, and experience extreme amount of pleasure within your own system without having anyone else needing to be there. So it can also be experienced and expressed as orgasmic bliss without having it, that other person that's inspiring maybe or lighting that fire within you anywhere near you. Yeah? How's that as an idea? Julia's letting me go for it. Thanks, Julia.
We'd like to know how.
How? Okay. So, okay. I want to come back to Rickus as well. Like, I haven't forgotten you in this, because this is also like a huge part of the Tantra world where there's a lot of play with this energy. So one beautiful way to learn to be with this energy, which is where I learned to be with it, is in the world of Tantra. So I got myself into a Tantra class thinking it was a yoga school. And it was, because Tantra is one little tiny slice of a very great yogic philosophy and way of being. It's the sexuality piece, the Tantra is a tiny slice of the Tantric tradition, which is wide and vast. Yeah, so this tiny little slice is what we took in the West, probably because we really needed it to shine light into this space. So I learned within the world of Tantra it was through meditation, actually. So it wasn't through sex with other people, though eventually with my partner, I experienced that as well and moved the energy in that way. It was first through meditation, sitting with the energy, feeling it, actually physically moving my hand, because I needed the biofeedback along my body as I worked with a different energy. And over time, that became easier. With men, the way that I work with it is through breath work. Also women too, but with men, the breath work really, really helps. We breathe into the lower power center. They feel turn on. Then we focus on shifting that energy into their heart. We breathe, we do breath work into the heart. So they experience the different quality of energy at their heart. The breath work really helps. It energizes, you're shifting the energy. And then we breathe into actually the third eye. I'm doing this because we do hand movement to help as well, a little bit. It's breath work and then moving the energy back down. It takes a bit of practice, but over time, easily done. So you're generating a little bit of turn on in your body, generating a bit of that energy, small to start, and then working on moving through breath, sound, movement, focus. Yeah, breath, sound, movement, focus. I'm missing one. These different tools, you can begin to move the energy into the different parts of your body and begin to experience it there. Very basic, kind of layman's terms. I would say start with the 3 main power centers, and then you can become more refined and work through the different chakra. And then you can do this thing called the microcosmic orbit, which moves it's an even more refined way of experiencing energy. With women, I tend to work with the jade egg. So I think we lost Julia. So it's a tool that we use to Has anyone heard of any of this stuff before? And I'm going to get some water. What else do you think of your answer? 1 sec. Okay. Is that totally making any sense at all to anyone, or have any, you guys want clarification in any way? Just giving a thumbs up. So you do start working with your, Pete's got the thumbs up. So you do start working with turn on as the energy source, yeah? So you turn yourself, it's really good to do the practice on your own first, because as you probably noticed, it's a little bit complex. So if you work with the energy on your own first, a little bit of self-pleasure in there, begin to feel the energy, and what about moving it to my heart and noticing what happens. It takes a bit of time. It took me a bit of time. And it can be learned. It definitely can be learned. Some people are really sensitive to energy and already can do it. And some people, and for some people, it takes a bit more time. And maybe for some people, it's just not the thing. Also okay. Not right or wrong. Doesn't mean anything. So if you become a master of the energy, of your energy in this way, you'll recognize when you're feeling heart-centered energy, when the energetic parts of you are out of balance, and begin to be able to work with them as well, to bring yourself into balance. So when all of these, you see all the little different colors and the lights, when they're all kind of in balance and bright, then you're in usually pretty good balance within yourself. Yeah, I think we got Julia back. Okay, Jo says she's fascinated. She hadn't heard about working with the chakras in this space. Yeah. Do you mean in Julia's space? She's been super kind to let me just do whatever. Unfiltered, raw version. Okay. All right. So, Rickes, did that kind of answer your question somewhat? Or do you want to ask it, and do you want to ask again or in a different way? Because I love I went, my coaching certification was from the Tantric School of Integrated Sexuality. So
Okay.
I love Tantra. It's amazing. And I've also seen the shadow side of it. So,
Yes, I think I was probably thinking about the shadow side. I mean, as I said, there's so many different things that people call tantra, and very different people practicing. And I was specifically wondering about teachers having sex with students, or then therapists. I mean, we do so from the Western tradition, that's this, and you know, as most of your slides about the ethics of that, from that perspective, it just doesn't happen. It's a very bad idea. It's a priori, it's a bad idea. But there are definitely people who would say, if there is an attraction, then there's a reason for that. And the way to engage with that is to have sex and to use that experience still in awareness, you know, to feel growth, and to use it as a diagnostic tool, and to use it as a tool of intervention as well. In the sense that sex is sort of I mean, the assumption there is sex is sort of a microcosm that reflects the way that you relate with all of the world. So you can learn from your stance toward everybody around you and the world from the way that you engage in sex, and to the extent that you can work with that and transform that, you can transform wider relationships. So that's the justification there. But I'm not sure. And I've seen that for some people, it has definitely been benefited them tremendously. And I have seen people for whom it was obviously a very bad idea.
Yeah.
So I suppose one question is there a way to know? Are there environments, contexts, are there qualities of people that make it a bad idea or a good idea?
Yeah, great question. So there is something called sexual surrogacy in, let's say, the out of Tantra world into therapy world again, yeah? Sexual surrogacy, where you work with, there's a client, a therapist, and a sexual surrogate. Have you ever heard of sexual surrogacy? Yeah, it's legal, and there are questions around the ethics around it. So it's sort of, it's almost like half legal. It's very strange. So sexual surrogates can get paid for having sex with a client. The sexual surrogate acts as a stand-in for a human body. Yeah, to sound a little bit cold about it, but acts as a stand-in for a human body, yeah, to help the person who is having challenges work through them. And the surrogate works with the therapist, and the client works with the therapist, both separately, and they can also all work together. In the space that I've been in for so long, there are some people who practice I would call sexual surrogacy, but are actually prostitutes. And it's not legal, yeah? And they have absolutely zero protection, but they absolutely have helped people to heal in the world of Tantra as well. So when is it, yeah, this is a very, very complex question. For sure, we're still sitting with it on a lot of levels, yeah. When is it healing? And when is it, as you and I have both experienced and seen probably, you know, when is it actually damaging? And for me, when it's damaging is when the boundaries are not clear. And there is messiness about what's actually happening. It is so difficult. I'm not going to say it's so difficult to hold a clean space when it comes to this stuff. It really is. That's why I keep saying over and over again, if you haven't had some exposure to trauma therapy, or trauma-informed practice, if you haven't had some experience of working with very deep wounding, the wounds that happen on intimacy and sex are usually quite deep and are extremely tender. They're so tender because the space is really, really, there's a freshness and tenderness about it that's still there. So if a Tantra instructor has trauma-informed experience, or somehow was able to have a sense of that, and hold a very clean container for someone, then they could guide someone through an experience of being sexually involved with them that's actually healing. If a sex coach like me, not hands-on, I do not do hands-on work. I teach clients how to work with their own bodies, yeah? Made a decision not to do hands-on work. There are people who are somatic, they work somatically with other bodies and are hands-on in their approach, yeah? It's such a tender space. I felt I could hold a very strong space and help people without having to be hands-on. It was also a very personal decision. That would help me to stay in integrity and to hold a clean space for what I knew would be very challenging, because it is. Yeah. And then there are people who do the somatic work, and then there are sexual surrogates, and then there are prostitutes. Like, the gamut is wide. And where it's legal and not legal, in the ethics, it's very, ooh, what a space we're in, right? Because healing needs and wants to happen. Oftentimes, healing needs and wants to happen in relation to another person. Yeah? The nature of that relationship, the boundaries that are super clear, the energy that's brought into that space needs to be clean. That's why working on the chakra system, understanding when your energy is messy at any one point, clean it up, and then come back to the container. Yeah, do that work on yourself, come back to the container. If it feels like you can't, or you're swept, or you're out in some way, you bring it to old fashioned, bring it to supervision, refer the client on in a responsible way, get some coaching or therapeutic help yourself, or do some energy alchemy work. Yeah. Keeping the container clean is so, so important. So it's not denying that that energy isn't there. It's keeping the intention behind that energy and what you do with it clean. That is a massive responsibility. Yeah? It's a massive responsibility. It's not for everyone, for sure. So refer on if you need to. I hope that makes the murky waters a little more clear. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything that's come up they want to share? It's really interesting to sit in this space. It's so interesting because it's so nuanced. It feels like one of those spaces, I would say finance, money stuff, still quite murky for us as humans. Like this space is still really wanting a lot of conscious awareness brought to it, a lot of understanding, a lot of tenderness, a lot of ferocity, a lot of allotness, because there's so much potential to do so much with this beautiful energy we've been gifted. It's so powerful. That's why it's been pushed down and back and manipulated and twisted and turned so much. It's so powerful. It can be such a force for good and creating and creativity and connection and also the shadow. Yeah, that's it. So yeah. I silenced you all. Oh dear. So Wundera's question, can you still charge for this session? I think that was in relation to whether if you're, yeah, I think I answered that one, didn't I? Yeah. If not, I'll answer it if you want to ask again a different way, maybe. Yeah, okay. Let's see. What do I have next? Oh, this. Well, I just want to give this space a little space because that was just a rant by me. So, or a bit of a lot. Feels soft now. So, yeah. How's everyone doing? Okay. Okay. If you want more, I can bring on some more. Dare we? How we do?
Bring it on.
Bring it on. Okay. You can always leave or mute me. Mute me. How many times? Or maybe it's not a lot. Who knows? Okay. So some of the things I hear a lot are, I love my husband, I love my partner, but I just don't feel attracted to them anymore. Or I want a relationship, but anytime anyone looks at me, I kind of close down or shy away. Or something like everything else is so good in our relationship except that. So I work with all of this stuff that comes up. The list, if you want, for couples and individuals both, can be sexless marriage or partnerships. Mismatched libido, so one person feels totally like they want sex a lot more than the other. Low sex drive, slow sex drive, overactive sex drive, integrating that. Sex and intimacy changes following life events. So I've dealt a lot with people who have had grief. They've lost either a partner has died suddenly. One woman was in her early 30s and had a partner who wasn't much older than her wake up, had a heart attack in the night, and she was looking to date again. I've had other people have had loss, and that's disconnected them from their desire, and they'd never made the connection. So that changes like that, like loss can happen. Menopause for women, andropause for men, aging also can have an impact. Performance anxiety kind of stuff, which manifests in sometimes premature ejaculation or delayed ejaculation for men. For women, a lot of times they'll experience vaginismus or be anorgasmic, have never had the experience of orgasm, don't know what it is, don't know how to access it. And then I also do work with some couples on sacred sex, tantric sex, connecting on the in ways that are multidimensional. So what you saw with the chakra system, connecting energies that way. Do this because it's weaving between the two bodies, those energies, experiencing someone in a whole new way, and so much more for sacred sex. So that's some of the sex and intimacy stuff that I do. I work with people who are single as well. A lot of women who are single who have always maybe had challenges feeling desire, or feel like they have too much and don't know what to do with it. So there's also that. With relationship stuff, I work with long-term couples and in early stage dating, or with early stage dating. Like all this is kind of common E-type stuff. Communication challenges, conflict resolution, infidelities and affairs. Conscious uncoupling is coming up more and more. And then opening the relationship, ethical non-monogamy is coming. So these are more edgy. The conscious uncoupling, ethical non-monogamy are more edgy. So more, you may have heard about those less, but I work with people with that stuff too. Good old-fashioned communication. And then dating and love for singles and people later in life who have either always been single or have experienced divorce or loss. Helping them break through patterns, building self-confidence, confusion about whether they're even attractive or not, or asking too much or not enough. And so what I would say in general, what comes up a lot for people as themes are, one, being afraid to articulate what it is that they really want, the style and quality of the relationship, or the way that they would love intimacy to be, to articulate that and really claim it. They may not believe it's possible, or that they can have it, or have felt too afraid to really say what it is that they want. So once we begin to articulate and really claim what it is that the client wants, the person that I'm working with wants, that in itself can be quite a process, as you probably know. It's where we start. So it is, while it's a therapeutic coaching kind of practice that I do, it's very much focused. It's funny because it's coaching and therapy at the same time. So whilst it's goal oriented, there also is an element of, and drop the goal, and drop the end game, and we're going to be here on a journey and explore. But with coaching and the way that I coach, I definitely have a soft power approach where I would love to support someone and really moving forward and feeling like they're making progress. So a lot of people who come to me have often had years and years of talk therapy and feel like they're spinning, or have done already loads of work and just are looking for something different. So because I work with the body as much as with the emotions and the psyche, as well as for people who are ready, energetics, and a bit with spirit, if that's what they come for, then we do that too. So it's shifting them into, usually it's shifting into deeper levels and layers of work and getting to know themselves in a whole new way. So oftentimes the things that come up will be self-worth, deservingness, fear of intimacy and closeness, fear of loss and losing, abandonment, this kind of thing. These are themes that can come up. And then the trauma will work through layers of that as well. So getting them really confident, able to communicate in whole new ways. There are practical skills and tools that that I teach, I share, that people use, and yeah, like any other practice in that way. It's very much a coaching practice as you probably practice and probably know. Getting super clear on where we're going, moving through the stuff that's blocking them, cleaning and clearing. At the same time, empowerment happens in parallel. So healing happens, empowerment happens in parallel. We clean and clear, we empower. We clean and clear, we empower in the same session. Yeah? So that's what really can up-level someone really quickly. And it's the way that I love working, and that clients really experience change happening quite rapidly. So as rapid, as fast as our bodies are ready for. Whilst there's no rush, usually clients feel an urgency. And so it's being with that desire to move forward, as well as holding a really soft, gentle space to sit in with things at the same time. So we're not just sitting and being, we're also moving. We're not just pushing and moving, we're sitting and being. So it's a balance of being and doing, which I found has been quite powerful for people and healthy and healing. So that's a little bit about how I work. Things that are different from normal, let's say, coaching or therapy, because we're working with the body, especially with sex and intimacy, as much as the physical body, as much as with the heart and the mind, I'll say it again, and energy. There are different ways of working. I'll use breath work a lot, or to some degree. I'll use focusing a lot, the felt sense. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this kind of stuff. You may or may not be. Trauma release kind of stuff, working with somatic experiencing moves at times. A lot of positive psychology, Gestalt therapy kind of stuff, getting people to see things in different ways. Probably CBT and NLP, but I'm not formally trained. I have it on here. I'm not formally trained in NLP or CBT. That was part of my coaching certification that I did, but it wasn't explicitly that. I was much more this other stuff. And yeah, all the mindfulness kind of stuff that we use, that you may also use, meditation, visualization, journaling sometimes for some people, embodied affirmation. Definitely a key part of my practice is getting people in their bodies and experiencing through their bodies the deeper truth that lie within them. So yeah, East and West. It's a balance of East and West, let's say. Yeah. Any questions about any of that stuff, or the practice that I've come to so far? It's fun. I love it. It's really good. There's always more to learn, and more. The Enneagram system is there for me to dive into. But yeah, we can move on. All right. Let's just do this little last bit, maybe, since we're here. So what is healthy in modern day love? Who here wants to pop in or unmute yourself? What is a healthy relationship today? What does healthy mean? How is it in relationships? How is it in intimacy? What's healthy anyway? And what is modern day love? And what is a relationship today? A contemporary relationship. What do you expect from it? What do you hope for from it? Confusing, yeah. Can I have anything? What you gonna have?
Andrea?
Yes.
I think for me, it's all about transparency. I was talking to a friend earlier, these days, people are not very transparent in relationships. Like you see on social media, they can post that they're on a date with their loved one, but you don't see the face. Mm-hmm. You might just see like the other person's hands and not a face. There's just this thing, particularly in my orbit, where people are just not open about disclosing to the world who they're with. It's just a trend I've picked up. And I was just saying to my friend, I think it becomes official when people on your social media feed see who you're with. Mm-hmm. That's my current take on it.
Okay. So for you, it means it's real when on the socials. So let's say front facing to society, yeah, or your social space, that you've revealed. It sounds like a reveal almost, that you're with someone, and that's what makes it real.
Yeah, correct. And part of that is like, why are you hiding this person from the world? You're showing everything else but the person. So are you being mature in how you are experiencing your love? Yeah, fine. You could say, no, it's my business, it's private, but what's that about is my question for some of my friends.
Yeah. What's it about? I'm curious about what it's about for you. If you're getting like these little glimpses of body parts, it sounds like, or different hints of things that's happening, then what kind of goes on for you?
Was that a question for me?
Yeah, just curious.
What goes on for me is like, this is all fake.
It's all fake. It doesn't seem.
It's gonna end soon, and it usually does. You know, that's been my experience with the people in my orbit.
Okay.
So my thing is, why not just be mature and be open with your person in the beginning? Because maybe that person's trying to hide something from the world.
The other person or your friend?
I guess it's both of them, because you get some times where your partner will ask you, should we now, back in the day it was Facebook, they'll say, let's be Facebook official, right? And then you put, Andrea is in a relationship with so-and-so, right? Then the whole world knows. These days, just a photo. A picture says 1,000 words, but you don't get that photo. And then it's like people are, playing games. So that's what's going on for me. I could be wrong. That's how I'm just experiencing people in my orbit when they are in these relationships.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily if, like you say, if it's right or wrong, or if it's kind of like your experience of it and feeling like, okay, social media is throwing up so many different things for people. And it's a curious thing. Why are people growing up in that space in that way? And maybe, the meaning I make, or the sense making, I guess more sense making what I make sense out of it is maybe they're afraid that if it doesn't work out, they'll feel ashamed. And so they just, they're hinting at maybe someone being there, but I'm going to wait till it's solid and secure before I actually show them. Because if they drop, then I'll feel silly. So it could be all about, this is the sense making I'm making out of it, Alistair, again. It's kind of like, okay, can there be, if you want to feel more peace and acceptance towards it, then what might that take? If that is something that you want to shift. And it's also just, yeah, thanks for that observation. Woo. And so let's see. Confusing. What's confusing about it?
I just think I suppose it's a partially an age thing, or partially being in the kind of human healing business. But the varieties of relationship work for people are remarkable. They're remarkable. People make all these adaptations, and the older they get, the more they're happy to play with the basic structure, it seems. So I don't know what a modern relationship is, or what is good. And I think it's something that the pair, or now they have triplet relationships. Maybe even the triplet must now decide whether it works for them. I don't know how to make sense of that.
Yeah. It's kind of if you can have anything, or create anything, if you're going to create the thing that felt best for you, I would start there. Not that I'm coaching. What does that look like? If you're going to just erase all the noise, or then what would be the true North Star, or the thing that for you would feel really good? If you could have anything, without worrying about everyone else, what would that be? And then from there, it's how might that be created? And at the same time, acknowledging that there's an incredible amount of complexity in the world, and There are people who are being with the complexity, like you are, in a very open, conscious way. And then there are the people who are doing their same old thing, and they're not. And I think what kind of warms my heart or gives me hope for myself and my clients is that there's a mix of both. There's definitely a lot of shifts that are happening for a lot of people, and they're going in eyes wide open, more and more, which is a beautiful thing. And there's always that complexity that's there. So again, clean sweep, yeah, you could have whatever you want, and especially focusing on how you'll feel when you have it in your body. How will your body feel? How will your nervous system, how will your body feel? How will your heart feel? What will be happening in your mind? Or maybe it's a quiet mind, who knows? When you have that thing, that'll be challenging you, because that's often the nature of relationships, but actually does hit the spot in a way that feels whole and good. Yeah, it takes a lot of getting really, really quiet, because there's so much noise, and then our own history and our own stuff kind of comes up and it knocks on the door. If you can get really super quiet and say, okay, if I were going to create whatever it is that I wanted to create from this, what would that look like? How would that be? And simplify it down to that. I don't know if that's helpful. Yeah. Yeah. A lot to be with in today's day and age. We've got only a few minutes left, so I'm not going to dive into this next, what is healthy. Happy to come back, because it feels like, yeah, that was kind of, an answer for something to sit with, and it's like, and we could also really dive into the different aspects of what that looks like as well. It might be helpful, maybe. But right now I like just the clean and clear a little bit of that space out, get really quiet and gentle and sit with yourself. And if it were to be served up to you on a silver platter, with lots of beautiful things around it and a lot of really real stuff too, then what would that be? What would be good? Okay, so yeah, should I share how people can stay connected? Should they want to stay connected?
Yeah.
Yeah, is it a good time for that? Yeah, so I invite anyone who wants to connect with me. Let's see, I'm on LinkedIn. For sure, say hello. I'll put my profile in the chat. Also, I have an email if you want to send me a message. If there's a question that comes through in the next day or weeks, and you're like, I wish I had asked that, or thinking more on this, actually. Victoria, I've clocked, we've got the question about in vitro and pleasure. So I'll take a little bit of a dive into that. Happy to share if you want to connect with me. And yeah, I would say hello. Say hello, connect. Bye, Joe. Thanks for coming. Yeah, and anyone who wants to, if you do have clients that you feel like you need to refer on, then I'm open for referrals. And if you also, in connecting with me, share a bit more about what you're doing, if there's anyone that I feel that I might be able to send towards you, then I'm happy to do that as well. So, so yeah, and anything that wants to get shared with me about anything I've spoken to today, feel free to be in touch or just to say hi. I'm also on Insta and Facebook somewhere, but I'm more present on LinkedIn and Insta, I'd say.
Great. Thank you. Andrea, you've left me with so many questions and so many new ideas to play with. It's such an enormous field and such a hidden field for most of us coaches. So thank you for today. And I'm sorry we kind of jiggled you about in the beginning with questions. And thank you for going into the sort of conventional and also the tantric side of it.
My pleasure. Oh, and I forgot to answer the question. I wrote it down here. How much sex is right? or enough. What's normal? There is no normal. As much as feels good for you to be having is the right amount. And if it's very different from what your partner wants, then you come to coaching. Generally. Yeah, you find ways to make it work for the both of you. And then there's the stats will tell you sexless marriage is when you have sex less than 2 times a month, I think it is now, or something. So there are numbers there if you want sort of a barometer as well. Yeah, that's basically it. As much as you want.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for coming. We'll be sending you circulars about the next sessions, so watch out for us. And there's also a special event on the 20th of July, talking sort of a conversation between myself and Alice Agnostakis, who runs vertical leadership development programs in Australia. So we're going to be comparing the two programs, and both of us use the methodology of testing both our organizations before and after there's the intervention. So please come if you can. And thank you, Andrea, once again. And thank you all for coming.
Thanks, Julia, for having me. Thanks everyone for asking the questions and showing up and being amazing. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Andrea, you're going to hang on for a moment.
Sure.